Good morning and welcome to Fellowship Church Online. If it's your first time watching today, thank you so much for joining us and checking us out. We would love to connect with you. In just a moment, you'll see a link in the comments section directing you to our online connection form. Just take a moment during the service, fill it out. This is a great way for us to stay connected with you, as well as answer any questions you may have, as well as send you a gift just as a thank you for joining us today. We want to say thank you to all of you who are so faithfully giving during this time and choosing to be part of God's mission to reach people locally in our community as well as globally around the world. So thank you so much for your generosity. In a moment again, you'll see a link in the comments section directing you to different ways in which you can give today. Believe it or not, Christmas is right around the corner. And what that means is that it's time to start collecting shoeboxes for Operation Christmas Child. If you don't know what this organization is, it's one that Fellowship has been a part of for many years. And what they do is that they collect these shoe boxes from churches all around the world, and they send these shoe boxes full of toys and trinkets to children who are less fortunate, and they spread the love and hope of Jesus to children all around the world. And so if you're looking to grab a shoebox, be on the lookout in your email as well as social media for available times to come by the church to grab a couple shoeboxes, and we'll need them returned by November 8th. It's that time of year again where Fellowship Church is now starting up another semester of FC groups. For those of you who have been a part of groups and who have led groups, know how vitally important these are to our faith, right? At Fellowship, we believe that these groups are the best way to grow your faith, as well as get to know and connect with other believers in the church. And so make sure you check out the available groups on our website, on the app. Check them out sometime during this week and make sure you sign up because they're starting very, very soon. Thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of the service.
Once I was lost, wandering in darkness, no life inside, no hope inside. He called my name, he healed my blindness, set me ablaze. Now I'm alive with him. His love breaking through my heart of stone, love breathing to awake my bones, love reaching out to save my soul, love never gonna let me go. And now my heart, so full of worship, I can't hold back, no, I can't contain it, for all he's done, Jesus my Savior. I am ablaze and full of thanks for, come on, his love breaking through my heart of stone, love breathing to awake my bones, love reaching out to save my soul, love never gonna let me go, love calling me as I am, love making me new again, love lifting me when I can, love never gonna let me go. Wherever you've been, whatever you've done, come as you are, come into his open arms.
Hey church, I've got some exciting news to share with you. On Sunday, November 1st, we're going to be reuniting again together for our indoor services. We're going to be meeting every Sunday at 10 a.m. Now, your safety and your health is a huge priority to us, and so we want to share with you 5 safety protocols that we'll be using during our service times. And we're calling them 5 things you need to know before you go. Well, if you're like me, you love your coffee. So you'll need to drink your coffee before you come to service, because once our service begins, there's no coffee that's going to be served, no food will be served, and we're asking you not to bring anything from outside as well in. The reason behind this is because you'll need to have your mask off to eat or to drink, and we want to keep our masks on during the whole service. Speaking of masks, in order to be able to protect the most vulnerable, we're asking you to wear your mask during the entire service. This also allows us to align with the governor's request regarding mask wearing for indoor occasions. Our spacious and sanitized bathrooms will be open throughout the entire service time. Also, we have hand sanitizer stations placed strategically throughout the whole facility. As you enter the auditorium, you'll notice things to be a little different. We blocked off some rows and chairs in order to maintain social distancing. We'll not be offering kids programming when we regather indoors, but still feel free to bring your kids along. Maybe pack them a set of headphones where they can be able to watch or listen to the online kids programming that we do offer, or even just some coloring book and crayons to be able to keep them occupied and use their creative juices during the service time. Well, I hope that this gives you a good idea of what you could expect if you decide to join us for our indoor services. I also hope that it informs you in being able to make a good decision that's unique to you and your particular family. If you do decide to be with us, and I hope you do, you'll need to register for this as well in order for us to be able to maintain social distancing for our services. And if you have any further questions, feel free to reach out to us or go to our FAQ page, which you can find on our website or on our app. Finally, I just want to tell you, I'm so excited to be able to see you again indoors. But if you're not comfortable with indoors meeting yet and you want to stay online, that's fine too. I'll see you there as well. Well, hey church, I'm so glad to be with you again here. We're right in the middle of October. It's just a beautiful time of year here up in Connecticut, and I hope that you're spending some time outdoors when you can get there. But it's so nice to be able to meet with you online, wherever you might be watching this. I know that with the coronavirus this year and all of us having to stay inside for as long as we have, a lot of us have been well acquainted with YouTube. And YouTube is very interesting. I've been watching a lot of different videos on YouTube, golf improvement and all kinds of things like that. But here's what I would say from my experience, and maybe with your experience as well with YouTube, is that it tends to give us this false sense of security, right? I mean, you watch this how-to video, maybe it's about 14 minutes long, how to make this recipe or how to fix a car, and you see it and you're like, man, I can do that. And so then you have your confidence all built up, and then you put the video down or you process through the video. You find out that this 14-minute video ends up taking you probably 4 or 5 hours before it's all done, and probably several trips back and forth to the store. And I have found myself more than once being frustrated and honestly disappointed when I've tried to apply these YouTube videos to real life. And you may have experienced that, with solving math problems. We've done this in school where it looks easy with the teacher, then you go home and it's not easy. Or as I said before, recipes or fixing your car or whatever. YouTube can just leave us feeling a little disappointed. But those of us that have been around long, not even very long, we realize that to live is to experience disappointment. If we haven't learned anything from 2020, that's what we've learned, right? But we experience disappointment on 1,000 different levels, don't we? Whether you don't make the team or you didn't get the job. But it really goes to a whole different level when your disappointment surrounds around God. Those are tough moments for us, right? Maybe for some of us, it's praying for our marriage and looking for a breakthrough. And no matter how hard we pray, it doesn't seem to change at all. Our spouse doesn't seem to change. Or maybe you're praying to have a child and you're struggling with infertility. It seems like everybody else is having kids, but you want a child more than anything, and you just can't get pregnant. Or maybe it's an illness that you have, and you just can't seem to get over this hump, this breakthrough of this illness. Or maybe it's even cancer, and everyone else sounds like is getting better from it, but you're not, or the person that you love isn't. Those are moments that we really struggle with because we feel like we're placed in these impossible situations that we cannot find a way out. Well, Jesus addressed this when they were talking. He was talking with some people about an intense situation that was going on with them. And it says Matthew records this in Matthew 19:26. He says, Jesus looked at them intently. You can see this. There was this drama. This was a dramatic moment. And he said to them, humanly speaking, it is impossible. But with God, everything is possible. That's an amazing statement by Jesus. In one way, it really builds our faith, and it just allows us to see greater things and to say, I want to experience that with God. And then in other ways, we find it frustrating because it seems like impossible situations happen for other people, but so many times in our situations, it seems like the breakthrough wasn't there, right? I mean, there's many situations and events that we encounter that when we look at them, they really do look impossible. But I want to encourage you today that God is in the impossible business, that he really is at work, even when we don't see him working. Now, if you're like me and, we're all processing through this crazy year, life probably hasn't lived up to your expectations, right? I mean, remember what you thought when we first started 2020? This is going to be the best year ever. I'm going to do this and accomplish that. And then everything kind of just got waylaid. It just got sidetracked and shut down. And all those great dreams and those expectations kind of had to take a back seat for right now. And that's kind of how life works. We have these great seasons where it seems like everything's clicking and things are going well and everything's moving up and to the right. And then suddenly it can just change in a moment, right? I mean, think about it. This coronavirus, it's like a bad song that we hear, and it just doesn't ever end. You ever hear that? And you're just like, when is this song going to be over? Well, I want to ask you, what is the greatest disappointment you're experiencing in your life right now? I mean, I want you to really think about this. What is the thing that really confuses you, that you don't understand, or you just can't get over, and you're kind of stuck because of it? Well, I don't know what your disappointment is, but here's what I do know. Your disappointment raises troubling questions. Questions like, where's God in all of this? Does he even care what I'm going through? I mean, what is he ever going to answer my prayers? So for the remainder of our time here, I want to be real. I don't want to just give shallow answers. And this is why I think the Psalms are so great. If you read through the Psalms, they are shockingly real. I turned to the Psalms when the virus first hit back in March, and we were separated from each other, and fear was at an all-time high. We didn't know what we were dealing with, and I found myself drawn to these Psalms. Now, you have to know something about the Psalms. The Psalms are like songs, they're like poems, but they're like prayers, but they're different. There's different kinds of Psalms. There's, for instance, Psalms of Ascent, as they're heading to church, to the temple. And then there's Psalms that I want to talk about today, Psalms of Lament, where life is broken and people are going through some real pain and some real disappointment, and they're crying out to God, and their souls are just broken over what's going on in their life. And the good news is that these Psalms can teach us how to love God and also holler at the same time because of our frustration, to just be real before God. So we're going to be in Psalm 77 today. And this is an incredible psalm of lament. It was written by a guy named Asaph. And we don't know a whole lot about him, but we do know that he's going through a season of extreme disappointment in his life, where God just seems absent. He's not getting his prayers answered. Things are breaking down in his life, and he's at his very wit's end with this. And so I want to start by reading verses 1 through 3. And he says this. He says, I cry out to God. Yes, I shout. Oh, that God would listen to me. Can you sense the frustration? When I was in deep trouble, I searched for the Lord. And all night long I prayed. He couldn't sleep. And with hands lifted toward heaven, but my soul was not comforted. I think of God and I moan, overwhelmed with longing for his help. Now, we don't know why Asaph is so disappointed, but we know that whatever it is literally tearing him up inside. He can't sleep at night. He's asking questions. He's shouting. I mean, he's at his very end. He goes on in verse 4, you don't let me sleep, God. I am too distressed to even pray. Have you ever been there? I mean, how do you talk to God when you feel so broken and disappointed that you don't know if you're ever going to even make it? What do we tell people? Think about this. When people are that upset, what's the advice that we give to them? What have you heard as an advice when you're really upset and you're going through things that are really, really difficult and things that are impossible for you? What's the first thing that we say to people to be able to help them through this? Well, we usually say to pray, right? We say just pray and start there and then see what God will do. Well, Asaph had really tried prayer, but prayer didn't even seem to work for him. He was still so upset. And so I'm going to kind of make you nervous here because I want to pose this question, so hang with me. But what if prayer is not the first thing you should do in a crisis? I mean, we've all heard that's really where we need to go, is we just need to pray as soon as the crisis hits. But Asaph did this, and it didn't seem to help at all. I mean, he didn't seem to get any answers. As a matter of fact, it leads him to some shocking questions to God. And maybe you can relate. Verse 7, he says, has the Lord rejected me forever? Will he never again be kind to me? I mean, these are exactly opposite of the character of God, right? Have his promises permanently failed? Is he no longer a promise keeper? Has God forgotten to be gracious? Has he slammed the door on his compassion? I mean, has God just turned his back on me? Has he changed his character? Is he different than who he said he was going to be? I mean, these are shocking questions. He's questioning God's, not just his greatness, but his goodness to him. But aren't those the kind of raw and real questions that we wrestle with when we're really disappointed with God? I mean, what I love about Asaph is that he's being honest to God. And that's the name of our series here that we're moving into today, is being honest with God and being honest about our disappointment. And so what do we do when we're so disappointed with God? Is God going to be greater than even our disappointments? Those are questions we need to ask. Well, as a pastor for as many years as I've been, a couple of decades now, I've been acquainted with these three words that I feel like have really kind of come out. I've used them a lot, I should say, in 2020. And here's the three words. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know why the coronavirus hits and we are dealing with a global pandemic. I don't know why abuse takes place in people's homes. I don't know why bad things happen to good people. I don't have an answer for global pandemics all the time and miscarriages with loving, couples, or cancer, that takes place to families and to good people, and car accidents, and you name it, the list goes on. The New Testament has a word to describe the painful experience of not really being able to understand and hear from God in moments of great disappointment. And that word is mystery. So I just want to ask you, what's your mystery that you're processing through right now? And then I want to ask this question. What can we learn from Asaph? Because his psalm is recorded in the scriptures. It's been preserved there for thousands of years for us to learn what it means to really have a relationship with God through moments and seasons of honest disappointment in our life. So if we're not going to pray first, like Asaph did, what should we do? Even before we pray, which I'm a big believer in prayer. But what can we do first? Well, he talks about this in verse 11. He says, "But then I recall all that you have done, O Lord. I remember your wonderful deeds of long ago. They are constantly in my thoughts. I cannot stop thinking about your mighty works." And this is what I want us to take away from today is this. When we're going through seasons of disappointment, honest disappointment in our life, the number one thing we should do is remember God's faithfulness and who he truly is. So before you pray, have a clear picture of who God is. Focus on God before your circumstance and measure him against your disappointment. Whether you're saying, "God, I'm afraid," or "I'm confused." You ever hear this? These are usually what we say to God, when we're going through disappointment. "I need a miracle. It's I this and I that." And it's very me-centered a lot of times. And it's very natural for us to do that when we're going to God. We just want to tell him what we're going through and the situation that we're dealing with and how it all seems so impossible to us. But what if we switched the script? And what if instead of thinking about ourselves and our point of view, we just focused on God? I mean, Jesus teaches us this in his model prayer to us. "Our Father who's in heaven, hallowed be your name. Your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven." Well, in verse 11 of Psalm 77, something changes. And instead of focusing on his disappointment, Asaph focuses on the God who's bigger than his disappointment. And he begins to reflect on the greatness of God and on the faithfulness of God and how that God has not abandoned people, just although he feels disappointed in that moment. He remembers a time where it seemed God was absent in the past, but then in a moment, God performs this miracle to bring the Israelites through. And so the first thing we should do when we're going through these seasons of disappointment is not to necessarily focus on our disappointment, but instead to have the discipline and the wherewithal, and we could ask the Holy Spirit to help us with this, to think of God and his past faithfulness. So what Asaph brought up was the Israelites crossing the Red Sea. This was always a big moment and story and a memory for the children of Israel. But here's what's interesting. After the Israelites crossed the Red Sea, they didn't just walk into the promised land. They wandered in a desert for a long, long time. It should have only been a couple of weeks, but eventually it ended up taking 40 long years. Can you imagine being on a trip that was supposed to take 2 weeks, but instead it took 40 years? And so finally, they're on this precipice of entering into the promised land. And all they need to do in order to go from the wilderness to the promised land is to just cross this river, the Jordan River. And that's all that separates them. So Joshua is leading the people at this time. Moses had died. And so he said and was told by God to just follow the priests who had the Ark of the Covenant. This was the presence of God for their nation. Just follow them into the river and everything will be okay. But here's the problem. It's a season in which the Jordan River is at flood stage. This is not a river that you just walk in and cross. Matter of fact, there's strong rapids. We see this with the Connecticut River, right? People know that it's dangerous to go into the Connecticut River. People don't just hang out and play in that river because of all the undertows and all the problems the currents that we have. Well, this is what's going on with the Jordan River. It's impossible to cross. It's impossible to cross. It's way deeper than it normally is. It's way rougher than it normally is. Now think about this. As a nation, they have small children, they have elderly, and they even have people who are handicapped that just can't get across this river. This is an impossible situation. And they're supposed to follow the priests into the river. That, God's not going to do what he did at the Red Sea. There's no parting of it. They're just walking into this river at flood stage. This is what's going on in that time. Seems like God's far away. Seems like a disappointing situation. Well, let's pick up the reading. Joshua records it. He says, "It was harvest season, and the Jordan River was overflowing its banks. But as soon as the feet of the priests who were carrying the Ark of the Covenant touched the water at the river's edge, the water above that point began backing up. Now listen to this, a great distance away at a town called Adam, which is near Zarethan. And the water below that point flowed on, continued flowing through to the Dead Sea until the riverbed was eventually dry. Then all the people crossed over near the town of Jericho. What happened here? Well, this was different than what happened with the Red Sea. With the Red Sea, everything parted right in front of them. They could see the miracle. But in the Jordan River, the parting took place upstream at another town 19 miles away. That was well out of their eyesight, right? It was a miracle that they could not see take place. See where I'm going here? When you're going through a tough season, we need to remember, just like Asaph did, that God is at work, and it might be upstream in your life where you can't see it. It's out of your line of sight. All the Israelites could see were the rapids on the river and the craziness and the danger of that river. Even though it was going down ever so slowly. And when you're going through a season of enormous disappointment, you have a choice. You can have faith in God that He's true to His character, or you can turn your back on Him. And it's tempting to go either way. Psalm 77 is a psalm which begins with this person, Asaph, who's racked with disappointment. And he's ready to give up, and he's being really honest to God. But he begins to state who God really is. And he remembers His faithfulness, and he remembers His power, and he remembers His love and His care and His concern for the people. Well, we pick up in verse 13. He says this, "Oh God, your ways are holy. Is there any God as mighty as you?" Of course, the answer is no. You are the God of great wonders. You demonstrate your awesome power among the nations. In other words, you are God of the impossible, where with me it seems impossible. It seems so disappointing. But with God, all things are possible. See, here's the great news. Disappointment is never the last word in a story that God has written. It doesn't have to be the last word in your story with Him either. So if we start with our eyes on the faith on God, who performs these miracles, one day we'll see that He was at work upstream, out of our line of sight, in ways that we just couldn't see in that moment. And then we can pray, only God is greater than my disappointment. So, what do we do with this? How can we apply this to our life right now? Because remember earlier I asked you, what is it that is a disappointment in your life? What is it that leaves you confused and asking questions about God? Well, what can I do about that? Well, there's a couple of things. One of the things we can do is make sure that you're not in isolation. Being isolated from everybody else is the worst thing you could do in seasons of disappointment. Connection and relationship with others is so powerful. We were made to be with each other. So get around people who remind you often that God is still at work, that He's not done doing miracles, and that He is a faithful God. So you can do this through Zoom groups. You can do this through texting, through phone calls. You can do this by getting together if you're comfortable with that physically. But the point is, be with people. And then I want to encourage some of you to invite Jesus into your life and to surrender to His grace, His love, and His forgiveness. Because if you're trying to go through life all alone without a God who loves you, it's hard to get very far. It's a life filled with disappointment, and it's a life filled with isolation. So I want to invite you to say yes to Jesus, to invite Him into your life. If there's anybody who understands and knows your discouragement, it's Jesus. He lived here on this earth. He knows what it feels like to be discouraged in moments, to have people that you love, not be around you at that time. This happened to Him right before His crucifixion. He knows and understands your prayers. He wants to encourage you. He wants you to sense his presence in your life and his love for you and his concern. So invite Jesus into that discouragement that you're feeling, into your life, and let him be the forgiver of your sins. Let him be the light in a dark, dark situation in your life right now. He died on the cross for your sins. He rose again from the dead, all so he could have a relationship with you so that you would never have to go through anything, any season of your life, especially a season of disappointment, alone. So whatever your decision is today, may we, like Asaph did, choose the path of faith. May we be honest to God, but may we ultimately remember that he loves us, that he's powerful, and that he's consistent, and that he is for us. And I pray that your path of faith will be a path in which God is lifted up and he is glorified, and all those around you will be drawn to his wonder and greatness. I love you. I hope that this message has been an encouragement to you, and I pray that you'll be able to take it with you this week. Look often at Psalm 77 and find encouragement through it. God bless you. Have a great week.
I keep fighting voices in my mind that say I'm not enough. Every single lie that tells me I will never measure up. Am I more than just the sum of every high and every low? Remind me once again just who I am, because I need to know. Oh, you say I am loved when I can't feel a thing. You say I am strong when I think I am weak. You say I am held when I am falling short, and when I don't belong. Oh, you say I am yours, and I believe. Oh, I believe what you say of me. I believe. The only thing that matters now is everything you think of me. In you I find my worth, in you I find my identity. Oh, you say I am loved when I can't feel a thing. You say I am strong when I think I am weak. You say I am held when I am falling short, and when I don't belong. Oh, you say I am yours, and I believe. Yes, I believe what you say of me. I believe. Taking all I have and now I'm laying it at your feet. You'll have every failure, God. You'll have every victory. Ooh, oh, you say I am loved when I can't feel a thing. You say I am strong when I think I am weak. You say I am held
Thank you for joining us today. We hope you found our service meaningful. We want to encourage you that the most important decision you'll ever make is to follow Jesus. We want to help you do that. If you go to our website at fellowshipchurchct.com and click on Next Steps, you'll find everything you need to know about how to start a relationship with Jesus, how to grow in that relationship, and even how to go public with that relationship through baptism. If you'll fill out the contact form, we at Fellowship will reach out to you and talk to you more about how you can do that personally. We are so excited for you, and we're so excited that you're here. We look forward to seeing you next week, same time, online. Thank you.